everybody, and welcome to the Revenue Architect Surgery podcast. I'm Ralf Paschen, former CMO and GTM advisor, and I'm joined by my co-host Arnaud Lagarde, former VP of Sales and CRO. This show exists because every revenue leader we know has a graveyard of deals that's dealt, teams that never quite aligned, and forecasts that we quietly wrong for longer than anyone admitted. Nobody talks about that publicly. We do. Each episode, we sit down for an honest, peer-level conversation about where their go-to-market actually broke down, why it was so hard to see at the time, and what they would do differently today. No vendor pitches, no polished success theater, just a real diagnosis. Today's episode 2 is about our messaging was brilliant, but our buyers were confused. So something most revenue leaders are proud of until they are not. The messaging was tight, the positioning deck looked brilliant, the board was happy, the internal reviews went smoothly, and then it hit the market, and the buyers looked confused, disengaged, or simply moved on. We are getting into the gap between internal clarity and external resonance, why GTM teams fall in love with their own language, how the language loses the buyer conversation entirely, what it actually takes to close that gap before it costs your pipeline. This one will feel familiar where you built the messaging, approved it, or had to sell with it. So the point is, Arnaud, what's your take on this?
Well, my take on this, maybe I'll start with a few statements and maybe you can challenge this. But in many companies I've worked with, I shouldn't necessarily say that, but in some of the companies I've worked with, when we work on messaging, you can see that, sometimes product team tend to focus on features and technology and how powerful technology is and how different it is. But I think they forget an important point of the dimension is that technology alone doesn't sell. It's the customers that buys. And sometimes we fail to, in fact, concentrate on communicating on customer outcomes. So, we use very smart messaging and lighting visions, but in the end, what matter is what's the customer's going to do with the technology, what problem is going to solve. And I have many experience of brilliant technologists that you can sort of listen and read the complexity and the sophistication of the message, but then in the end, when you put that in front of the customers, they said, "Oh, that sounds great, but what do you do?" So
Sounds familiar. Correct.
Yes. So I don't know. I mean, you've been obviously in the marketing side, so you've been, I guess, preparing a few of these message, and you're probably also under the pressure of, optimizing for analysts and show category leaderships, and it's very tempting to be a little bit inward thinking and say, wow, this is great. We need to push that features because it's the killer feature. So what? I don't want to say you're part of the problem, obviously, knowing you, but some CMO are sometimes part of the problem.
True as well, by the way. I'm not counting this on my own, but thank you, Arnaud. So first of all, I'm a guy who understands the difference between an analyst pitch and a iconic buyer pitch and a person who uses the product or the team uses the product. So it's different. It's different messaging. It's overlay messaging for sure, but you have to be sure that an analyst is not talking with any technical people. They're not, typically not. So that messaging is a 30,000 feet thing. 100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe more aligned with the V2 mom vision, values, methods, whatever, obstacles and measurement. That's okay, or a vision of the company. But the point, if you go into a customer and now it gets really to the ground of sales and marketing, you're not hitting this guy of an analyst. You're not hitting the iconic buyer typically. That could happen, but typically you go for the technical buyer, for the technical inference, and on. Do they care about a feature? No. Do they care about the problem that gets solved? Oh, absolutely they do. So as long as you talk about the feature, you land somehow something, but you never land more than a 3K, 4K deal, which a sales is not worth for, to be honest with you. It doesn't make any sense. You need to get to the bigger guys. To get to the bigger guys, what's the problem you're solving? So when I go into a room, If people telling me the messaging is great, the first question is, what is this for? For whom? And they tell me
Yeah.
already EB, who's buying the software? The EB means economic buyer. Who's buying the software? Typical team leaders. What are you solving for them? We are working on it. Really? Okay, so how do you help your sales guys? That's the first question I'd ask for. And then you get MQLs by this way, I would say, you got a bigger problem than I thought. I know, definitely you do. So my first question on this game is, and I can tell you in AI, it's much harder than before. People talking about killer features, and we both know that still, right? From the past.
Yeah.
That already stopped 10 years ago. You can't build anything in 6 months. Now with AI, you can build it in 30 days. So what's a killer
Yeah,
feature?
that's it.
Okay. It didn't make sense 10 years ago. It doesn't make less sense today because I can build in a lovable or V0 white coding anything, including a full CRM product, easily out if I have the knowledge of the problem. And now it starts to point. As a business person, I can create my own code, my own programs, my own apps by knowing the problem, not knowing what the software does. And that's something that brings everybody under pressure now from a messaging perspective. You need to be as sharp as possible to showcase the problem, what you're solving, and not, I have a great feature. It doesn't work anymore. And that's something which I find very interesting, that people still think in their messaging feature is a killer. Okay?
Yeah.
And it still happens.
Yeah. I mean, when I advise, startup, we work. I mean, the first thing I like to work on, especially when I have an established business, is, okay, describe your unique value propositions. What problem do you address? Why is it important? How do you address it? And how do you address it better than others? Because you first, as you said, you first want to, concentrate on the problem. I sometimes say to, in fact, my marketing team say, like, look, instead of marketing the features, market the problems. People will recognize them in the problems. And if you have that sort of emotional attachment that, oh yes, I've experienced this as well, then they'll work with you to find the solutions. You become the trusted advisor because you understand their problems. And then you just have to take them through a customer journey. Mm-hmm. This is the problem. We're going to quantify it. Is it worth solving? Because not every problem is worth solving. How do I solve it fast, with less risk, high ROI, maximum impact? And, I think, the best companies, the most successful companies, always focus first on the customer outcome. And I think the most successful companies understand that they have to have that strong collaboration between product, marketing, and sales. And if they're able to work together and focus on customer outcome, this is really how you build a foundation for fast growth. So collaboration also in messaging, simplifications of messaging, to make sure that when it comes from, product, we have good understanding of technology and impact, and, how does that translate, or how does that get digested by the salespersons, and how do you get consistency of messaging? Because Ralf, you've worked in global companies, so you understand that probably better than most. But customers will look at multiple channels of informations.
Correct.
So they need to have consistency. Otherwise, they're confused. If they're confused, they perceive risk. So simplifying, clarity, and consistency, I think, is key in go-to-market messages.
Yeah, the interesting challenges which you face over the last 6 months, and I can tell you this is also driven by investors heavily, because they all believe AI. I was facing this as well. You need to use AI voice agents. You need to use AI SDRs. You need to use AI emails. You need to use AI or LinkedIn and all the kind of stuff. So what does it lead to? Noise.
Okay. What's the problem? I need to use this, but what's the problem?
So the point is, what I suggest when you want to find out the messaging, first of all, you need two things to adjust that. First of all, talk with the existing customers you have, if you have any. If you're being a startup, you need to face it, go to events, go in the community, ask for that, prove yourself all the time, every time as a founder. You've been in the field,
Especially in Germany as well, by the way, because everybody wants to go to Germany, but
correct? It's
especially in
controversial.
Germany, if you have no proof, stay at home.
Now, let me add another sidekick on that. Don't think you can do German market from the UK. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So most startups in the US are trying to go for UK and then try to hit the
Yeah.
Germany market. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
The point what I want to make is, and you need to prove your messaging. Go to your customers. Go where they're drinking, the water holes, the water
Yeah.
fountain they are sitting there and drinking from, which is typically events,
Yeah.
community events, community-led approaches. Find out what the problem is, and then pitch it to these people. Hey, what do you think about this and this and this and this? Because it's the only way you can really figure out your messaging. You cannot figure out a messaging. Hey, I built a product. Now let's find a problem. It doesn't work. It never worked, and it doesn't work. And you're not getting there. Definitely not.
I'm sure we've seen it many times though.
We've seen it many times, especially in that device. Correct. So
Yes.
we have a great product. Great. What does it solve? I don't know. Why we have to fix it. Okay. Nice. Good one. So the point is, what I always, and especially in this, they come back to this noise perspective, because every investor told me you need to use all this AI stuff, and I said, okay, guys, I use AI to embrace, but I'm not replace. That doesn't work. It never worked, and it will not work because it just created noise. Now, funny enough, you see this, and I come back to this messaging point perspective. Now, LinkedIn stopped that in January 2026. They are looking not for AI generated content. They just put their algorithm down for everything which is AI generated. They do. Now they want to get expert insights. What is an expert insight? I understand the problem of my buyer persona. I understand the problem of the technical people. That's expert insights. It's expert talk. It's like we do here today. That's an expert talk about GTM. We will be higher ranked. And what I mean with this is when you work on the messaging positioning, understand your client, understand what they're facing, understand their challenges. Go there where they go to fix something, and potentially do it with do it yourself, which is the best way for doing this in a product. Okay. And then come up with that. And that's an ongoing growth piece as well, that you go to events and that you community led, because all the other channels, and you said it right, and there's another channel you should not underestimate, and it's a very big one. All these emails, LinkedIn, phone calls don't work anymore. I give now a tip for everyone. Maybe I kill myself with that. Direct mail works again. The analog mail works again. People are getting interested in direct mail because they're not getting a lot of mails anymore. So this channel comes back retro style. But there's another channel. People underestimate that. ChatGPT, LLM search. People are really well informed before you come back to you. They do. They're really looking at ChatGPT, especially buyer personas. They're looking for what are the free alternatives for doing this, to solving this problem. Even not being on there, that's a problem. So how to get there? This is all this kind of shiny AEO, FAQs, LLM readiness on your website. SEO is that. No, it's not. LLM is not learning from your keystrokes or anything like that. This is just learning from the internet, which learns from Reddit, from Google, everything. So your messaging has to be so sharp that a question of a person in ChatGPT, which you cannot control, solves a problem immediately, that you're being ranked as one of the first three. You're not ranked there, you're gonna not chosen. That's exactly what it is.
So that means that, especially when you come to sales and marketing, you need to be able to very clearly, synthetically explain the problem you solve and how you solve it. Because I'm guessing people will not have time to sort of ask you the second or third question anymore. You know, sometimes in the old days, I mean, when we're learning our track, we're like, yeah, we've got all this. And I said, okay, but how does that help me with this? Well, I'm guessing today they need to have had the answer to their questions, because they will do the research before they talk to you. So you won't be here to sort of do the objection handling, or, it's almost like you don't have time to funnel, the question funneling. Even they will not have time to do this. So you need to be able to, I think it's the age of maybe clarity. We need to make sure that everything is simplified, clear, and focus on, as we said, customer outcome.
It comes to the point about when we talked about buyer got confused, right? So what does buyer confused really look like in the field? From my perspective, they are not saying that they are confused. That's the best part of it. they go quiet, they ghost you, they slow the deal,
Yes.
they do everything. They ask for more time to
It's
evaluate, whatever. Okay?
it's these deals that are never lost, but will never
They're never lost.
close. Will.
There will be more stakeholders without
Uh,
explaining why,
uh,
because somebody get
uh,
just a
yeah,
rescue
yeah.
approach in there. So what are the signals in the sales conversations or the pipeline or win-loss patterns that tells you, for example, I know that the messaging is not landing? What are the typical signals you would look for?
Um, well, I mean, the message is not landing. I mean, well, the first thing is, as we said, if you do your elevator pitch and the customer says, so what is he going to do for me? Or can you, that sounds interesting, but can you tell me what problem is solved or how I can use this? That means that already your message has almost confused the buyers, because and it's quite dangerous, because it also shows the buyer that sometimes they feel like, oh, maybe I'm not educated enough to understand this. So you almost put them a little bit on the bad foot sometimes, and then sometimes what happens is, I mean, I've seen that sometimes with founders, like then they go another injections of complexity, so show you the power. So on a one-to-one conversations, this is how you see if there is confusion on the buyer, because they end up having questions that you should have answered in the first instance. Then I think if we look at systems and metrics, you'll see you have a number of leads, and then the leads never get qualified,
Drop.
or they get qualified, but they might have been qualified because at some point, we need that conversion, so we're gonna put a lead into an MQL, but hopefully the next questions or the next iteration will demonstrate that it was indeed an MQL. So we end up having conversion a little bit by accident. And then usually what happens is it stalls in the early stage of the sales motion. So maybe one discovery call, and then you lose tractions, and then you have a lot of your pipeline in the early stage that never convert. So there are different signals that you can use. You can use system signals if you have lots of activities, or you can sort of looked at what is the dynamic of your conversations to sort of say, if he's asking questions that I should have asked before, that means that my message is not clear enough or not customer focused enough. So I show it from two angles, I would think.
I like a one signal, which is the most expensive one you can run into. Run this in an event. Whatever the event looks like, maybe not the biggest event, not the 100K, 200, 300K event, maybe the smaller ones. Run it there. You know the target audience, you define the messaging there. If you're not getting traction on the booth, you should be prepared to change the messaging on the booth. I did this, just put stickers on it and you just change the messaging. It's all good. But it's the most expensive way. But when people are coming to your booth and telling you, that's interesting, what are you doing exactly? That's exactly the signal for you. You're on the track. And that happened to me now twice. Okay. It's very interesting. Remember, one of them was subsystem copy. Everybody in the company said this makes no sense. Makes no sense. We did $1 million in the first year. Done. Right. So with a consulting gig of 30K, we invested 30K and made $1 million in the first year. And everybody told me, you're wrong. Okay, got it. I take it. My former company still runs that business. It's very funny. So, but anyhow, the point is for me, testing things out against any resistance internally, I'm fine with that as well. I'm fine with that. It doesn't need to be consensus in the team, aligned, everybody's aligned. You need to test messaging. But if you align to messaging, my biggest fear is that people are, now in 2 months, we are checking it out. It doesn't work. Messaging is not done in 2 months. Marketing comes up. As I said, LLM doesn't know about you. LLM learns typically every 5 to 6 months. Every new model released in your LLM, ChatGPT or Claude or anything, you would call Sonnet, Opus, Mythos, whatever you call it, that's the learning model. It takes 6 months to be released to the public. So in this 6 months, you get named in there. So if you change your messaging every 2 months, guess what's the model have for you? Nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and again, this is your number one source. It's your number one source for the
Yeah.
buyer persona because that's the guy who's doing this on the phone, just asking, hey, what do you think about this? Boom. This is exactly what he thinks.
Uh,
If it makes
I
sense or
think
not,
the
go ahead.
I think the challenge is everybody gets impatient these days.
This, yes.
So when you say like 6 months to a year, you know, nobody likes this. Nobody likes to work hard anymore. They want instant gratifications.
Absolutely.
So then, in fact, that's quite interesting. It almost shows us to another topic. Is like, we sometimes, especially when we communicate to, leadership or the market, you end up talking a lot about, indicators, which are sometimes after the event indicators. So I think we need to have also, in order to show progress, maybe that's a different topic, by the way, than messaging, but you need to make sure that you have early stage indicators so you can show progress. Because asking somebody to sort of say, in 5 to 6 months, we will know. They'll say, well, we don't have 5 or 6 months.
I agree. That's the reason why you're doing the following to do messaging.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
get a messaging in-house placed by
Yeah.
the internal teams, everybody says, great, we go for that. You can tell
Yeah.
that that falls, that go for it is ending when you close the door. It's ended at that time.
Yeah.
It's 10 minutes later. It's off. Okay?
Yeah.
What you need to prove is before you put a messaging out, and I'm talking messaging in different ways. When we're talking
Yeah.
about messaging, everything on the website, every webinar, everything you do
Yeah.
runs
Yeah.
against the messaging. One voice to the market, the sales enablement, everything runs against the messaging. That doesn't replace test messaging. Test messaging can be done by a webinar, can be done by
Yeah.
email outreach, can be done by a campaign, could be done by a social media approach, could be done in any case, but it doesn't mean this changes the website and the voice of the company. It does not.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
voice of the
Yeah.
company stays, it has to stay for 6 months. The rest, you can test things out. Maybe this is better. Maybe you have to adjust that. We have to optimize that. It's not about still staying 6 months, running into the game.
Yeah.
You run a campaign for 1 million with no outcome, but hey, we have to pay 1 million. So that's the reason we let 6 months running. No, I stop campaigns.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. I don't care.
Yeah.
2 weeks and then stop it if I don't see results.
I'm just thinking about the audience. So
Correct.
it's
But
a
the
it's a
point
good
is-
important
The point
part. Yeah.
is, for messaging, you can test things out, but you have to make a choice on what is your main message, and that you have to run. And you can test messaging, can optimize it over time. That's not a problem, the main messaging. What the problem really is, if you did the messaging without buying clients and without knowing the market and without understanding the market and without understanding the customer, why they bought, why they buy, what kind of problems do they have, because you can go so wrong without it.
Yeah.
You have all this internal consensus and everybody, and I can tell you now in sales, because I did a hit on the CMOs, I now do the hit on the CROs.
Yeah.
That sounds great. I heard about 2 customers. Great. What are we targeting? 10,000? Good. You two, I said, how much? 0.2%? Fine.
Yeah.
So why do I care? And then comes
Yeah.
the CRO, CMO clash. But my 2 clients said they go in this direction. So, okay, so you're doing a prices for each of them? At different prices as well? No. We have one price. Why are you doing the different messaging for 2 personas for 9,998 other ones? So this is a clash as well. The
You
point
should look
is,
in motivation. Yes.
exactly, there's a 2 clients said that.
Yes.
Who cares? Okay?
It's, well, maybe not, but yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but I get my point. You need
Yes.
to really,
Yeah, I get
in
your
this
point.
case, 10, 15, 20 customers at events. And that's the reason I'm a big fan of sending to events without having a booth. Listen, what are they saying? What are they coming back with? Not only is this event worth for the marketing budget, but also, hey, did you talk with people at the lunchtime? What they are facing? Did they see something? Go to competition sessions and ask them, hey, do you face this problem? That's the messaging I'm talking about. It's baked by client testimonials, and it's baked
Yeah.
by people and we talk with in the market, and not just, hey, let's run something 6 months. Everybody can do it. ChatGPT can do it. Claude can do it. Everybody can do it.
Yeah.
That's easy. Build it. It's just like, I build a messaging on LLM. Great.
Yeah.
Do me a favor, just put $1 million on it. Do me a favor, just put $1 million on it. Let's see what happens.
So we're almost going back to our first podcast, which is
Correct,
like before
almost.
you do anything, research your customers, understand the problem better than they do, define who your ICP is, What do they care about? Okay, let's message here. Let's show them we understand. Seek to understand, before you pitch. So
I
yes,
saw also
maybe.
one of my former employers did change messaging every 6 weeks.
Yeah,
I was sitting there and said, this makes absolutely no sense. It makes absolutely no
but
sense. Like I could
I,
not
th-
deal with it, to be honest. Every 6 weeks a messaging change. You cannot
I
survive
think
that.
I think that show that they haven't found their market, because
Correct.
otherwise
That
they would
absolutely.
not do it. So they're doing testing via messaging instead of
But a full company.
testing through discovery and research.
Correct. It's disordered. And you can run a messaging and still
Mm,
test. That's not
yeah,
not holding you back. This is something product marketing or
but
typically
you
don't.
need to know that's what you're doing and not confused with selling.
Correct.
Because I
Don't reduce
remember
the service.
having some. I remember remember going to some companies, and it was like, oh, so you employ salespeople, but in fact they don't really have anything to sell. You want them to establish if there's a market need. That's a very expensive way of working. So, but yeah, I think we'll go back to pose, research, discover, validate. Once you're sure, then you can start building messagings that again focus on customer outcome, not just inward, thinking on your product and the technology, I guess. But I mean, we see, however, the temptations and of company to optimize for analyst messaging.
Yes.
Everybody
Yes.
knows that once a category is created, if you want to dominate that category, you're gonna want to be on the top right of the magic quadrant, so I think this is what that is also one reason why people come up with all these new concepts, and they slightly tweak the messaging of the category to say, hey, I am the only one doing this, that's why I'm better. But we don't know who you're doing it for. But however, the analyst might sort of understand, and
Analyst helps
I think
you.
that's that.
Analyst helps you, and I work with a lot of analysts from IDC,
Yeah,
EMA. Greetings to EMA. Dan, you
yeah,
still know me. Hopefully, you can see
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Gardner and Forster, we did all of that. So the point of analysts are they're talking with the leaders of companies, C level, CIO typically, and it's okay. I can take it. They get lots of recommendation from them. Hey, they ask you for free people, for free vendors, and you're being in market leader in the Forster wave or the Gartner MQ. It helps you to get into POC. It does. It helps you. Okay. Um, the problem is the market is shifting. People are not
mm,
asking the Gartner analyst anymore, and it's
mm,
happening. The shift is not big
yes,
right now for Gartner because still a gorilla in the market, but it's coming. And people are getting well educated on before they reach out
yeah,
to you. So
yeah, yeah,
what comes back to is this an MQL? Is not an MQL? They get well educated. You get what you said last time, Arnaud. I remember that. Somebody's well educated, maybe they take you as a second one. You are
yeah.
already part of the second one. You should be proud of because now it's number 1, 2, and 3 on ChatGPT or on Claude, whatever you call it.
Well,
So you should
that's
be proud already that marketing
from
did.
a sales point of view, it's painful to be second one. It's expensive
You
to be
don't
second
know. You
one.
don't know yet. So you don't know what the prompt was. So
Yeah,
could be good, could be bad, could be anything.
yeah,
But the point, the
mm,
marketing team did a good job to get there. If
yeah,
it's the case, it comes from
yeah,
Gartner. So for me, one of my discovery call questions is, how did he hear about us? That's why it's not
yeah,
just because marketing is great. No, how did you hear
mm,
about us? Oh, we talked with a customer. I worked for another customer. I used your product before. Perfect. So you know your PUC goes smooth. And it's a very important question. People are not asking.
mm,
People are not asking. They're
yeah,
afraid of asking. Why? How do you find us? Google Ads. Okay, I don't have an issue with
yeah,
that. ChatGPT, I don't have an issue with that. I work with a customer. I get a reference from a client. Which one is that? This one. Oh, I know this guy XYZ whatever. Great personal relationship. People are
mm,
tend to not asking these questions anymore, and this is something
mm.
which gets lost in between.
Yeah, it's part of it should be part of any discovery. In fact, it's when a customer comes to you, this is the time to ask as many questions as you want, because this is when they want something from you.
They want something from
So
you.
so you have some sort of leverage. So definitely. In fact, we a point I'd like to also discuss with you, and yeah, I'm very interested in your point of view, is a lot of the messaging these days are based on FOMO, you know,
Yeah.
your fear of missing out. And it seems to be the number one strategy today. Oh, you're missing because I have the most powerful end-to-end agentic AI platform that can address any problem and any. I was like, okay. Are people buying it? Oh, they are. Oh, yes, these customers and this. Okay, but I need to investigate then, or and that FOMO techniques is used a lot, and I mean, I have to say, we use it also, especially in in late stage. But usually, I like to use this versus the cost of doing nothing. If you don't make a decision now, this is how much we've established it costs you every month. But people use it like as a leading messaging these days,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see it on LinkedIn as well. It's just like, oh, all this and da da da.
I know. I
So,
know.
what do you think of this?
Did you get my GTM Fix newsletter? Because funny enough, my issue 5, which is just 3 days old,
Yeah.
talks about AI FOMO tax. Okay?
Oh,
So
really?
it does. It does. So you can look it up.
Okay.
AI FOMO
So
tax.
I have to confess I didn't yet, but
Okay, but it's a good one
yes.
because the FOMO effect is big. Everybody uses AI. Everybody does that. Everybody uses agents. Everybody does that. You're behind. Remember that. Use AI voice.
Mm,
Use AI LinkedIn. Use AI email. It doesn't work
yeah,
anymore because not too much
yeah,
noise. So what is happening with the FOMO? I'm a big fan of real stories. I'm not a big fan of FOMO.
mm,
FOMO is a guerrilla tactic in marketing. It's guerrilla marketing,
mm,
to be honest with you.
mm, yeah,
Showcase them emotional. It's an emotional binding kind of archetype. There are archetypes of personas out there. It's an own thing in marketing. I never looked into that
yeah,
because I'm too realistic that a real buyer would not give anything on that. Not one piece. He doesn't care.
mm,
Okay? A real buyer, a technical person potentially, and a real economic buyer, he knows his stuff. He knows his risk. He did risk mitigation way before he thought about it. Okay? He built
yeah,
the
yeah,
budget,
yeah,
everything. So FOMO does only work for specific people. The AI FOMO right now, and this is part of the newsletter, everybody tells you how great AI is, how great I get 100 meetings a day. I get everything process oriented. I replaced 10 people with sales and marketing and development. Everything I replaced. So now 3 stories for you. Number one, who's training these AIs? Because they're not learning. Who's training them? The person who runs them. Who's that? Founder. So are you happy to do trainings for AI agents every day on sales, marketing, finance, legal, everything? Are you doing this the whole day? Funny. Maybe you don't know it better. So you get this 10 times
yeah,
faster what you don't know. That's all you do. Then second piece, what people underestimate, do you understand JSON and YAML files? Yet another markup
yeah,
language or a JSON script. Do you understand coding language? Because if this is the case, feel free to run AI agents because that's what they're based on. It's
mm,
coding, it's development,
mm,
it's developers doing that. I can tell you because I'm doing a project right now and it's JSON YAML files to treat and do markdowns, knowledge and everything in there.
yeah,
It's not that easy, everybody. Click, 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 do. This is FOMO. And it created the FOMO because everybody does something on LinkedIn and YouTube and everything. Guys, FOMO doesn't work when you look behind the curtain. It doesn't work. If the
yeah,
FOMO is real and something is missed out, you should better prep that you can sell that without having a developer in place, without having all this heavy onboarding, heavy maintenance. And the best part of that is you own the tokens you pay for. So if you get a misaligned agent in place, you pay all of these tokens, which can take you tens of thousands of dollars for just running something you never built on your own. So the point of FOMO is as great as if it's real, and you can prove it with a software or not just I built something. So the AI FOMO is right now happening. You see this all over the place,
yeah,
Arnaud. Before that, it was something else. It's always FOMO.
yeah,
FOMO is like, I'm scared of getting hit by a gun.
yeah.
So now you can think about it for a while and you get used to that, especially when you live in a country where guns are
Mm.
normal and not violation, right? Why you fear anymore?
So
So you
okay,
get used to FOMO,
so
and this is the problem with FOMO.
Okay. So maybe FOMO works for an attention tactics.
Correct. It's guerrilla
But
marketing.
people but the salesperson should be also worried of FOMO. Because from
Yes.
what I've discussed with you and from what I know from my experience, the deals that comes from FOMO might be quick, but then they'll be small and they'll never scale.
That's
So in
my
the
point
end,
is
you can
very
use FOMO as an attraction tactics, but you need to very quickly focus on customer outcome and customer problem in order to make it scale. In fact, I remember, now we're talking about this. So when I was in, selling RPA after a few years, once people established, some of the benefits of automations, in the early days, it was like, really? This is like a sticky plaster to automate processes. We're not going to do that. But then at the end, they understood that the agility and for some type of process, it was worthwhile doing. But then I had sometimes people come say, oh, I want to do RPA. Okay, why? Well, everybody's doing it, and I'm sure we can find some use case for this. I'm like, okay, well, should we start with the use case? And I can help you that for discussions or finding out what is the outcome and the economic impact. But they were just like, some of them were just like very quick. They just wanted to understand talk and everything. And I remember a few discussions where, in fact, I never took that discussion any further because they were just not ready. The maturity on their process was not ready. And it takes time for some organization to understand their problem and their pain and what is worth solving. And sometimes they spend 6 months. In fact, after you said to them, find your process, and explain, you obviously your share, your experience. Like if you just start today, you're going to have automation fatigue because you're going to be doing some testing, and you'll never going to get any ROI. So you need to organize yourself and start with it. It also came back to what is the problem worth solving with that technology. And I think that that FOMO environment created people to look at all these different things, but they didn't know why they were looking.
correct. So that's the reason why they're looking for outcomes and for information.
Mm,
So if you're
mm,
being sharp enough and have a messaging in place, people will not look around anymore. They're just, hey, he knows what he's talking about. That's a big difference.
yeah, yeah,
Big difference like male. You need to be
yeah.
different. Always believe you need to be different. Okay? In anything
Mhm.
you do. So last one. What are your free recommendations for messaging? Arnaud?
Um, Based on the discussion now, I mean, I would think the basis should be, stop describing your product, and your features, and stop maybe just looking inward when you prepared your messaging. Start looking on customer outcome, customer operational pain. And the pain is always the same, yeah? They want to reduce risk, they want to grow, they want to, save cost and turn your market. So you should be able to sort of explain to the customers what outcome you're bringing to the market. And as you said, maybe use a few examples of customers to do that. So look outward, not inward. Okay, I think that would be my first
Mhm.
recommendations. Something I touched upon, maybe, and you touched upon, maybe test your messaging with a few customers, with people that are not expert in terms of what you do, so they don't necessarily make the assumption and the mental gymnastic between technology and outcome. So start with lemons, people, and test your messaging. And if it needs explaining, change your messaging. Look for clarity and simplifications. Um, I think that is key, and technically refuse to make the own assumptions of what that messages mean. So when you work with your product team and your marketing team, make sure that what they give you is absolutely clear. Otherwise, you'll make your own visions and translations, and then you'll confuse, your customers. Okay. And then something that people forget a lot, you might have great messaging, you focus on the impact, but customers want to understand change and the cost of change. So you can have the best messaging and the best solutions, but if it's complicated or expensive or risky to implement, they'll do nothing. So just make sure that as you promote your benefits and the solution and the outcome for the customers, give them a good visions of a frictionless customer journey to get to the outcome. These are my 3 recommendations.
Perfect. And that is where we will leave it for this episode. If one thing landed today, I hope it is this: a positioning problem is not something you workshop your way out in an afternoon. It requires you to step outside of your own building, which you exactly said as a recommendation, and listen to how buyers actually describe the problem you're solving. Until you do that, you're optimizing a story that only makes sense to the people who already believe it. Again, consensus in the team, nice, inside out. Somebody called it, it's like inside out messaging. You can't start diagnosing your own motion. I know I myself are both running GTM assessment for B2B SaaS teams, scaling through exactly this challenge, and the assessment is the fastest way to move from recognizing the problem to actually naming it. And there doesn't need to be consensus in the team. It doesn't need to be. It's all about the clients, all about the buyer, nothing else. You can consent that or not, but you have to test it. Thank you, Arnaud, for your thoughts and insights. Thanks for listening to Revenue Architect Surgery podcast. Real revenue leaders, real GTM failures. We saw all of them. No spin. We see you in 2 weeks for episode 3, which is we hired more reps and nothing got better. See you there.